Please come on in and fill up this third section over here. It has lots of room near the band, and you will get a first row seat to a good performance. All right, we're going to get started then. Well, welcome to the closing session of the 52nd AAIE conference here in New York City. We hope that you have had an invigorating couple of days with colleagues and some inspiring learning going on in the different sessions and experiences that you've had at the UN and here at the Marriott Marquis. There's a couple people that I would like to thank before we introduce the band and get started with awards and all the other good solution session talks we have. First of all, I'd like to thank our coffee sponsors. We had Pacific Prime and Wilkes. Is anyone from Pacific Prime and Wilkes here? Thank you for the coffee. I would also like to personally thank Tony DiNapoli. He is the Director of International Programs at NSU University, Nova Southeastern University in Florida, where I live and work. And he has been an outstanding supporter of AAIE for 10 years or plus now. Elsa had her offices at their Palm Beach campus, and then when I came on board, I moved down to their Fort Lauderdale main campus. And throughout that time, Tony has worked tirelessly to make sure that we have access to very, very nice facilities for very, very little for our offices and for our summer institutes. So those of you who have been there have seen the beautiful DeSantis building that we have our summer institutes in. So if we could please thank Tony for his outstanding support of our organization. Next up, I would like to thank the UNIS team. There was a very large team of people that made sure this conference took place. We had 22 parent volunteers work in the registration booth over the last couple days, 5 whiz kids, a 70-piece band, almost 100 choir students, and several very tired music instructors. So I'd like to thank, first of all, Gary. Gary, are you here? Gary is the music director. I'd also like to thank the director of the choir, the director of the band. We have Allegra Levy, who has been helping behind the scenes to make sure we had some AV that was much, much cheaper than it was available here. And she's also going to be playing, she's the lead singer in the band tonight that you'll be enjoying. So I'd like to thank her. Is Jeremy Burke here? Jeremy? I know he was here, he might have snuck out. He knew I was going to call him out. Jeremy, if you see Jeremy, let me know. Just do something, I'll do it later. Jeremy, could you come up here? I have never worked with a conference team coordinator who has worked as hard as this man to make sure, after some very interesting policy changes at the UN, that we were still able to have our general session. So would you please give Jeremy a hand for many weekends, nights, and other times? Him and I were on text probably till wee hours of the morning the last couple weeks just to make sure that the catering got ordered and things like that with some very interesting systems they have there. So thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Sal. Is Sal here? I'm not sure if he made it back from school. Salia Yai, who is the director there, fantastic support from him as well. And many letters. Jane Camblin, prior to him, helped us put in the first application. So there's been a couple applications that got us there. I would also like to thank John Henry Lambert, who's the director of the band, who's going to perform for you right now. And last but not least, is Erin Reiling here, the parent coordinator from UNIS? Is Erin here? I wasn't sure if she made it. I don't know how she got that many parents here, I'll be honest with you. We had 10 on Saturday stuffing bags, and we had 22 that showed up over the last 2 days. So for Aaron and the parents, please let your parent and your parent group know at Eunice they are currently in first place for any conference that I've ever run or seen. Thank you. So next I'm going to invite up to introduce the wonderful band sitting over here waiting to perform for you. Anand Singh, who is a student at Eunice, is going to let you know about the performance.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anand Singh, and I am a member of the band's officer committee at Eunice. I am pleased to introduce you to the Senior Wind Ensemble at the United Nations International School, directed by the one and only John Henry Lambert. As a part of our love for Eunice and music, the Eunice Senior Wind Ensemble has developed an ongoing community service project called Adopt a Band. Through Adopt a Band, we annually provide support to young music groups around the world and with boosting who need a boost by letting them know we care. Through our fundraising efforts, we have provided resources for teaching music, as well as instruments, books, and sheet music. Today, our 65-member wind ensemble will perform 2 selections from our concert repertoire. The first piece is a very demanding concert fanfare entitled Rise of the Firebird by Stephen Reinecke. The Firebird, or Phoenix, is presented here as a symbol of hope and triumph for the human spirit. Our second work is a powerful signature piece for the Eunice Senior Wind Ensemble, performed at Eunice graduations at the General Assembly, entitled The United Nations March by Carl L. King. Thank you for listening, and I'll leave it to Mr. Lambert, and we hope you enjoy our music this afternoon.
A huge thank you to the UNIS community, the UNIS students and band, and to the directors that have come out for all these performances. I know today they started loading equipment in at 12 o'clock for this performance. And if Mike DeLeon is here, the truck driver from UNIS, thank you as well. He was here visiting me on Saturday and Sunday, bringing stuff this weekend. So appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Students, thank you very much. Thank you for everything. All right, at this time, I would like to invite up Michael Coliani, who is the director of the Seoul International School. His teacher, Mark Dominguez, was the recipient of this year's AAIE Dr. Ernest Menino Graduate Student Scholarship Award. Mark is doing research in the area of induction training that meets the needs of non-host nationals, having a smooth transition into their host country. So we're looking forward to an article from him that he'll be sending to Bev. Bev's nodding over there. That he'll be sending to Bev, where he's going to be sharing out his research with us in Interred coming up in the fall of 2018. So without further ado, please give our regards to Mark, and I hope he enjoys the scholarship. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's like, all right, thank you very much. Next up, I'd like to invite Deb Welsh up here, who is my partner in crime at AAIE. Her and I have had the opportunity to work together over the last 2.5 years on some partnership projects that have been an absolute delight. And I'd also like to invite up Kevin Glass, who will be reading off the names of our winners. Just prior to that, though, because I realized I forgot this slide, I would like to recognize any sponsors or exhibitors who are in the hall. If you're a sponsor of this conference or an exhibitor, could you please stand? Any sponsors or exhibitors? You can thank them for their outstanding support. We hit a record high of sponsorship this year that allowed us to do some special things like the trip to the UN and the beautiful gala that you're going to enjoy this evening. So if you see them after this evening, if you're enjoying it, please thank them again. But the sponsors and exhibitors are what make the rest of this possible, and they're also your key resource providers throughout the year. So they're really partners that we value, and we hope to see more and more of them attending every year. So thank you again for coming. So at this time, we're going to have Deb say a couple words about the program and who's invited. And then if you are a mentor or a mentee in this year's cohort, if you would come forward, we are going to be giving you certificates for that. And Kevin Glass will be reading out your names as soon as Deb is done.
Leadership Legacy is a partnership program between the Academy for International School Heads, AAIE, and AAIE. We are in our second year. We pair experienced international school heads with first-year international school heads. We have 26 people participating this year, 13 mentees and 13 mentors. The mentors donate their time, they volunteer their time. We know how challenging and significant the first year of an international headship can be. And these mentors serve to offer support, encouragement, hope, advice when needed, and draw upon the wisdom that they have from their years of experience. We have moved to a rolling entry model, so whenever someone has been named a head, whatever month it is, if they contact either Yolanda or myself, we will pair them with an experienced school head. We ask the mentee questions relative to areas of expertise that they would like the mentor to specialize in, and other questions relative to geographical proximity and so forth. These mentors volunteer their time. We want to give them a resounding note of appreciation, and the mentees we know are very well launched. So let's ask them to come forward.
Any mentors and mentees who are here, if you could come forward. I know Chip's here.
So I'm going to start reading our list of wonderful mentors. Thank you so much for being with our new heads. So Chip Barder, Dennis Larkin, Madeline Hyde, Matthew Parr, Jeff Paulson, Rose Puffer, John Roberts, Wayne Rutherford, Bev Sortland, Ellen Stern, John Todd, and Susan Williams. Please, can you put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, and thank our mentors. And if you know of new heads in your area, your region, your country, please advise them to reach out to us, to AAIE, to Deb Welsh, AAIE, to Yolanda. It's really, really important that we find out who's new out there in our world and give them our best support. Please put your hands together for our wonderful mentees who've availed themselves of the collective wisdom of the mentors that you see on the floor in front of me. So our mentees this year, first-time heads, were Tobin Bechtel, Rachel Caldwell, Carrie Dietz, Mark Hardeman, Sasha Heckman, Patrick Herworth, Karen O'Connell, Jamie Otis, Ben Plurger, Michelle Quirin, Tim Stewart, and Tim Warren. Thank you, mentees, for being willing to engage with our mentors and be focused on your own craft of leading our international schools. Congratulations to all of you.
And I want to thank Deb. She's been absolutely fantastic to work with. And I think, if none of you know this, her husband does a phenomenal job of bringing her coffee every day. Because we're on Skype and he walks in, sets it down, nice steaming cup of coffee. Very nice. All right. All right, we've got, next up we're going to be, let me see what's on here. I keep getting text messages to remember the clicker. So next up we have the solution sessions, and we have a sponsor for this closing session every year. It's been the College Board. They have been an increasingly important partner with us on a number of initiatives, and so I'm very happy to have their new Executive Director, Linda Liu, here with us. Linda, hold on one second, here we go. Linda is the Vice President of International for the College Board. She leads the College Board's work to provide opportunities for students outside the 50 United States to connect with higher education in the U.S. and globally through our English-based programs such as SAT and Advanced Placement. Since joining the College Board in 2007, Linda has played a key role in a variety of areas across SAT program and enterprise-level strategy and partnerships. While in the SAT program, Linda led program management efforts for SAT subject tests, practice resources, and internationally. Most recently, Linda served as Executive Director of Strategy and Partnerships, where her responsibilities have included forging key partnerships for the College Board, including the Khan Academy, Code.org, and Project Lead the Way. Prior to joining the College Board, Linda was a management consultant with Deloitte Consulting, advising some of the world's largest companies in the pharmaceutical, financial services, and professional services sectors, spanning new product development, merger integration, and process improvement. Linda holds a bachelor's degree in both economics and East Asian languages and civilization from the University of Chicago and an MBA from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. Linda, welcome up.
Thank you, Yolanda, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm also joined in the room by a couple of other colleagues from the College Board, some of whom need no introduction, like Clay Hensley and Brian Hartman, whom I believe many of you in the room know. But we also have Carrie Quinn here with us as well, and Carrie is the new lead on our team who's responsible for supporting all of your schools. So thank you for being here with us today. And you know, the College Board is really pleased to be sponsoring this closing session. Each year, we are especially pleased to be sponsoring this session this year, where you will get readouts from each of the solution sessions that have been taking place during the conference. And I had an opportunity earlier today to watch a couple of these sessions today. In case some of you saw somebody lurking in the back today at your sessions, that was me. And as I observed each of these sessions, I was reminded of the advice that Nancy Zimpfer, former chancellor of the University of New York, shared a couple of weeks ago at the College Board's annual Higher Education Colloquium. So Nancy encouraged all of us to be the best at being better. That is perhaps the most fundamental idea to embrace in education, that learning and improving never stops. And I think each of these solution sessions really embodied that spirit of being better. What can we do to continuously improve and be better? The College Board is an organization that is over 100 years old. And for nearly half a century, we've been partnering with the State Department's Office of Overseas Schools to support international education, particularly American-style international education, which many of you come from. So with such a long-standing history, it is very easy to be content and stop being better. However, we have not been content. And just as an example, one area that we've collaborated closely with the Office of Overseas Schools on is professional learning for both AP teachers and counselors that work at international schools. And some of you may be aware of the Summer Institute for International Counselors that we run each June in collaboration with NYU, with support from the Office of Overseas Schools. And this is a program that is over 4 decades old. And each year we get very positive feedback from our participants. It's been working well. We didn't really have to do anything to change it. But several years ago, we thought it would make sense to make this excellent program available in other parts of the world. So we extended it to Abu Dhabi and Shanghai, where there were campuses for NYU, and was able to really reach counselors that were not able to join us here in New York. And this year, we are looking at evolving the program such that we have new strands for new counselors, as well as strands for more experienced counselors, recognizing that there are changing dynamics at each of your schools. For AP, we're currently working on developing new resources and supports for teachers so that we can really better support them in what they do best in the classroom to teach your students. So this is all to say that we share your commitment to international education and to professional learning, and we will support and innovate along the way with you. We will do our best to be better. And before I close, I want to really thank the State Department's Office of Overseas Schools for their continued partnership and support of our work together. As I said, you know, nearly a half century of collaboration there. In particular, I wanted to thank Dr. Keith Miller, sitting right up here, for his enduring service and commitment to American-style international education. What we do to support international schools at the College Board would really not be possible without support and the trust that you have given to us. So thank you, and we wish you the very best in the next chapter in your life. I'd also like to thank Tom Shearer. I think I saw Tom in here earlier. I think he's still here. Maybe? Well, In any case, I want to thank Tom for his being a steadfast champion of our work together, and really in the 18 months that I have been in this role, really a trusted advisor to me as I grow into this role. So congratulations, Tom, to wherever you are, to your on your new role, and I wish you all the very best. We all know that Washington is a tough place to be these days, so best of luck there. And with that, it is really my pleasure to introduce to you Jeff Paulson. And Jeff told me to keep this short, but it would be remiss of me not to talk about Jeff's distinguished background. Jeff is going to be the MC for today's closing solution session talks, and he will be sharing more with you on the speakers and groups who will be participating. But Jeff is AAIE's president-elect for 2017 through 2021, and the general director at Zurich International School. Jeff is also a distinguished scholar. He holds a doctorate of education in educational policy and administration from the University of Minnesota, a master of education in counseling and psychology from Boston University, and a bachelor of arts in mathematics from Augustana College in South Dakota. Jeff has 30 years of educational leadership, counseling, and teaching experience in 6 different international settings, including the US, England, Malaysia, Peru, Venezuela, and now Switzerland. And prior to joining ZIS, Jeff served as superintendent of Escuela Campo Alegre in Venezuela for 3 years. In addition to being an international educator, Jeff is also a parent of international students, so he can see the perspective from both sides of the table. And without further ado, Jeff.
All right, well, thank you very much. It's really my pleasure to be introducing the solution session part of the program. A bit of background on this. We're taking a bit of a risk here. We're working with some really talented people pulling together a program of information that we just really put together over the last 2 days. I think our team has done a really good job doing it. But what we're trying to do is create focus. One of my favorite quotes by Einstein goes like this: keep it simple, not simpler. And that clarity around focus, I believe, does keep things simple. It provides directions for an organization. It provides relevancy to an organization. I think we all work in schools or organizations where we are asking ourselves the same questions each and every year. And I sometimes wonder if we're asking the right question, truly the why behind that question, in the sense of what is the issue, what's at the core of it, and how can we move on so we're not talking about it a year later. That's the purpose of these solutions sessions. It's really the inspiration behind it. What we're trying to do with AAIE is identify the relevant issues that are facing us each and every day in our settings in the world of education. We know the world is changing fast. We know that expectations are changing. We know that if we're leading schools and managing schools the same way today that we were in 2010 or 2012, we're missing something. It's a challenge to bring our parent community along in that journey, our boards, our faculty. But change is present and change is necessary. And we got to get really good at asking the right questions. And when I think about AAIE and I think about our relevancy in the international world, we need to really be focused on what is most important. We need to be focused on what it is you need help with, what I need help with. Now, there's a bit of irony in the solution session title because there are no solutions today. Really, these should almost be called question sessions. Really a narrowing down, if you imagine, of a lot to a little, to really what is essential and what generates purpose for this organization and for us in the sense of moving forward constructively. We're going to go one by one. There are a number of different sessions, and I'm going to let individuals from these different solution sessions really introduce their topic and talk about the key findings, key takeaways from that. But the idea with this is this: we're going to be reaching out to you to extend and continue the conversation beyond this conference. We envision working groups really working on this, tackling this, discussing this, philosophizing about it, in a sense of what are we going to do? Ideally, some of these solutions that we are going to be striving for will provide the theme for next year's AAIE conference. And again, the cycle would continue. So the goal here is to extend the conversation, to deepen the learning, and to really work on the things that we know we need to work on. And let's leverage some of the talent that we have in this room and take advantage of it on a yearly basis, not just during a conference. So with that, I'd like to introduce John Burns and the first session. You can go to the next one.
Oh, okay, cool. So our topic was in regards to sparking innovation in schools. And when we kicked off, we wanted to make sure it wasn't just about built environment, not just the physical spaces, but what do we need to do with our communities, and maybe what do we need to do with our practice as well, in terms of trying new things in schools. And so we came up with some practical steps in terms of what maybe you could try a week from now, and maybe what you could try within the next month or so. And hopefully these are all pretty practical for you to use. So first off, make sure you can craft an elevator pitch. So if you're engaging in a change initiative in a school, make sure you can drill down to a clear and concise elevator pitch that anyone can understand, and then anyone else can articulate on your behalf, because it will help grow the change. It'll help it shift faster if you can do that. Our second one was more related to environment. And we said, can you implement simple classroom retrofits? And so things like put casters on couches and chairs so they can be rolled around. What about tennis balls on desk legs so they slide on the floor if you've got vinyl or a harder surface? And just simple things like, instead of having a whiteboard horizontal, put them vertical, seam to seam, and then you've got a huge wall that even little ones can engage with and write on as well. We talked about identifying exemplar practitioners. You know, Fullen's got a great quote. Effective leaders don't go from theory to practice, they do it the other way around. They look at what works in their organisation, and then they find the research to support it. So look around and figure out who are the stars in your school, who are the ones already engaging in contemporary pedagogies, and then showcase, celebrate and share that. You know, we've got so much good stuff internal, we don't always have to go outside for consultants. And then the last one in terms of one you could do next week is why not engage in some new modes of professional learning rather than teacher didactic or driven by admin. So, you know, ed camps and teach meets to leverage internal talent. Pecha Kucha, if you haven't tried that, it's fun. It's like a 20-slide presentation that rotates automatically every 20 seconds. And it's a nightmare if you have to do it, but it's funny for everyone in the audience. So it's a really easy way to, like, you know, promote and share PD, and it's a bit fun. Or run a hackathon. Have your staff and your students develop solutions for the school over the course of 12 hours, 24 hours, and then actually implement them. So they're the things we thought of in terms of things you could just try next week and are easy to do, but then we had some that might take a little bit longer. So within the next month, you could consider leveraging your parent community and the wider community. Why not have parents attending professional learning alongside teachers? You know, what would that do to boost the transparency in terms of what change is going on? Or why not leverage your community and your parents in terms of delivering professional learning? You'd have graphic designers, you'd have software developers, you'd have people experienced with project management, all sitting in your parent community that you could leverage to actually deliver alongside with your teachers. We talked about deprivatising practice, and a really simple one, but it takes a little while to implement, is why not use a Twitter hashtag to showcase the best of what your school does? You know, more often than not, what happens in one grade 2 classroom is a secret to the teacher next door. So why don't you deprivatise that practice, encourage people to share. If you've got learning innovation coaches or ed tech coaches, have them in documenting all the time. As admin, if you go into class, take a photo and share it. Take a quick video and share it on Twitter. There's some simple things you can do. When you get the time, codify the exemplars. Take the best of what you do. Turn it into a YouTube clip, turn it into an iBook, turn it into a blog or a Facebook page. And so then you can say, this is the practice we value, this is the pedagogy that we think is relevant in terms of learning innovation in our schools. And then do whatever New View Studio does, was our last piece of advice, because they're awesome, right? And that wasn't just about them, but, you know, check out Singapore American School and the Quest program, some of the cool stuff they're doing there, or go to the Futures Academy at ISB, Or check out, Shanghai American School and the Innovation Institute, because there's all these great examples of school-in-school models occurring all over the place. Or American School in Japan, they're doing some cool stuff with their senior program as well. We don't have to reinvent the wheel each time, And learning innovation, it's not scary. Innovation shouldn't be a scary thing, but it is good to remember that sometimes innovation can go too far, right? Thank you. And it's Sasha's turn.
Hi, I'm Sasha Heckman. My co-presenter was Dr. Tim Stewart, and what we were looking at was making personalized learning possible. And our kind of question that we're looking at was how do we fight the zombie syndrome and stop wasting kids' time in school? So how do we deconstruct that cohort model where every kid's getting the same experience in a fixed classroom environment, but half of them are bored and half of them can't figure out what the teacher's saying? And so we presented a model in our session, and we asked people for feedback, and our model is based on looking what's going on in the world, as Jeff recommended. We looked at over 150 schools that claimed to be innovative and kind of said, what are they doing? And so our model is based from practice. And what we identified is this paradigm of highly effective and learning progressive schools. So highly effective being our standard of they're getting into universities, kids are scoring well in external exams, they're doing all the things that our communities value that we have to continue to do if we want kids to attend our school, because there's those parents that pay tuition. And then the learning progressive piece of really, we distilled that down to agency and kids really being able to take ownership of their learning and having a lot of say. So when we looked at the models, what really is shifting, if we want to really personalize learning, is who has agency, who has control of the learning, whose learning is it? Are your IB scores, your kids' scores, or your teachers' scores? Who owns that learning? And also what has to change in the paradigm is what we expect from kids. So we have a teacher-led model right now in most of our schools because our outcome goal is really knowledge, surface level learning, as Hattie would say. So teachers can control that. They have the knowledge, they can transfer it. And what we aspire to in some of our schools is deep learning. So we do start sharing that agency, giving kids some voice and choice in a very fixed environment. What we really should be aspiring to is transfer, where kids are applying their own learning all the time and personalizing what they know to their life and their context. So we need agency to shift. So schools that do this really well, what they do is they give kids agency over pathway, how they learn, and also progression. They don't keep the kids in the box anymore. They move them forward at their own rate, at their own time, and kids get met where they need, what the help they need. So what we looked at with our group is what is kind of the challenges to this kind of model, especially the progression, which seems to be the hardest for us to change when we have schedules and cohorts and so forth. As the list says, quote Tim Carr, who was in our session, what needs to change is kind of everything. And so we have a list here from the classroom building model to the parent mindsets of what learning looks like to structures, physical and organization. The biggest one is that teacher mindset, that they're not in control. They don't own the learning. The kids own the learning. And so changing that mindset is probably one of the biggest challenge. What are our opportunities? Our accelerants, as we call them, technology. Technology kind of makes knowledge agnostic to everybody. They can go look at it. So we have blended learning, MOOCs, crowdsourcing knowledge, parent community. Teacher recruitment. We have the advantage, unlike some schools, where teachers leave and we can hire different people. So change management strategy might be to hire different people who know how to do this. Professional learning and also professional learning communities is a great platform from which to build if you have that already. And also the learning process. If you're inquiry-based, if you already have PBL, if you already have design thinking, that's a great launching pad, as John was just saying. And urgency. Do you really believe in this? Or if the end game is just, college, if success for our schools is what kids do at 18 and not what they do at 30, we can keep doing what we've been doing. But if we want kids to be successful at 18 and 30, we might need to shift our paradigm. Shameless plug, Tim and I have a book coming out that kind of documents this in May. That's our Twitter if you want to follow the journey as we keep putting up more and more evidence of schools we visit and things we're thinking about. That's our shameless plug. So thanks for the time, appreciate it. And Ann and Ash, thank you.
Okay, well, I'm Anne, and my background kind of comes in teacher retention. I just did my dissertation on international teacher retention, and I'm with the Cayman International School.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ash Pugh, and I'm with Teach Away. And we had our wonderful session over the past couple of days about teacher engagement and the pursuit of happiness within it.
Yeah, I think what kind of started for us is we shared each other's research, And deeply beneath that was sort of this idea of what makes a teacher really happy. And so while we might be doing things really well, what we want to do is, again, make them better and really increase that engagement. How does this work?
It works like this. Check that. All right, so we looked at our research and we said, okay, fine, we've got commonalities behind my research at Teachway and behind Anne's dissertation research. How do we make this work for you to provide you with some value? So we said, okay, well, let's tackle this little old problem that we all have here, which is this glaring teacher shortage that the International School Consultancy keeps telling us about, and it's true. And there's many different reasons for it, and I'm happy to talk about the economics about it any time, but we want to pop through this. So it is there. How do we take on this challenge in a meaningful way? And so Anne and I, we love our research and we're attached to it, but we know we can get caught in that research bubble, so we stepped outside of that. And we looked further afield to the Boston Consulting Group, and in particular, the research of Rainer Strack. If you know who this guy is, he's on YouTube, he's fantastic, but he has 20 years experience in HR staffing strategies around the world. He's fantastic, and he leads their Global Institute for Research in this. And he surveyed 200,000 people around the world, workers and employees, to see what it was that really meant a lot to them in their work environment. And so if the theme of this whole conference is transforming the world, I think you can see in these top 4, you start to get into what it means to be a transformational leader. Transformational leadership means that you're engaging with your staff in a very meaningful way, that you appreciate their work, that you're encouraging and developing those relationships between your staff, that you recognize the value of an individual and their work-life balance, and that you have a relationship, a meaningful one, not just a transactional one, but a transformational one with them. And way down at the bottom is that salary. It's not as important as you think. So we said, well, okay, thanks, Rainer. That's great research, but we're all a little bit different here in the international community. Is it the same? So at Teachway, we reached out to our database, and we pulled in a survey of just over 10,000 teachers to get their feedback to see what was important to them. And lo and behold, Rainer was right. We're not that different. Our teachers are looking for the same things in their life. And so some of the key factors that we saw for on-the-job happiness for teachers is that overwhelmingly, the most important thing for them is professional development opportunities. They too want to transform and grow and develop in their jobs. They want to have your support as a second thing, the support knowing that they can grow and develop and have the things they need. They also want to have access to the tools that they need to do their job. And the fourth thing there to not ignore is again, that kind of career path. Can I progress in my role? What we also saw is that, okay, that's great. How do we engage with these people? Where are they? Well, they're all online. Every single one of them, except for 3% of them, these outliers, but I'm not sure what they're doing. Your school websites are really important. Continue to develop them. They want to see that content, that rich content to tell the story about your school. And for them, personal referrals are always a big one. The fairs are important, but online is their first step to get there. What motivates them? So they find your website, they see your jobs, what makes them want to apply? This is the tricky part. Compensation is important for these teachers. I'm sorry to tell you that it is. But what's the key takeaways of this research is that the location and career progression are also very powerful for them. And so that means for those of you saying, well, I've got a school that's on the dark side of the moon and I don't have all of the funds that I want to have, you need to craft that story to show them how they can fit in to your school community, to remember that's the transformational component. How can I grow as an individual? How does my career change? What's in that for me besides just the money?
And so we're also talking about building that relationship, in the recruitment process. Is it a positive and valuable experience for them? And then they want that continued ongoing communication and relationship. So we're talking about pre-onboarding. Now, there's the practical side of, the HR and getting the work visas and getting them settled into housing, but are we partnering them with current teachers, both for the off-campus life as well as the on-campus? It could be 4 months, even up to 8 months, right? Lots of opportunity to show that you are the kind of school that's a relationship-based school through those early experiences, that early interaction. When we get to onboarding, it's not just orientation, which often is 2 to 4 weeks. You really want to think about onboarding as the whole first year. And while this culture shock for newer teachers is something that is more surprising, Even I myself, who've been through various culture shocks, I can, these dips coincide very often with the more stressful times of the school year. How are we building in community? How are we building in fun? How are we being able to take sort of that stress away? And also talking with them and building relationships about what they're going through and how to overcome some of that. So my research ended up being on retention. I had almost 1,000 teachers hired in the 15-16 and 16-17 school years. And again, I did a lot of demographics to see, which teachers stay and which go, but those demographics didn't matter near as much as 3 key areas. And those key areas in the organization were tripling the likelihood of retention had to do with the organizational sacrifice piece. So there are your salary and benefits, but it's also that career path. I don't want to sacrifice leaving this organization if I might get a committee lead, a department chair, a course that I get to design and develop myself. What's really important about retention too is that those teachers that are maybe 2 and 3 years, we want to get them to 4 and 5 years. We know they have an international mindset, but if you can just do that, you're cutting your recruitment in half. And so what are those key things that are going to make them want to stay for a couple more years? Doubling the likelihood is the organizational fit, and that's that good relationship with superior, but also that professional development. And while conferences are great, they want professional development that lasts throughout the year in their collegial relationships and their ongoing growth. Now, community fit, we can't do a lot about maybe pollution or weather or leisure activities, but we can be reaching out a lot more to developing community beyond the school walls. We have, for example, K-Mums, and we connect our families to that for play dates, for trailing spouses. Lots of different ways I think we can be getting better at making those wraparound services of happiness part of their well-being and ergo then their reason they would like to stay. So we also went with the 5 theme. I'll let Ash start.
Yeah, so let's make it snappy. What can I do right now? You mentioned that there were no real answers. Well, we've got a few answers for you. First big thing, takeaway is, and you can do it now for your recruitment, is tell your story. Don't just talk about the specific school, but what does it mean to be within your school community? Upgrade your job postings. I've read a lot of your job postings. They could be better, you guys. They could be better, but keep working on it. Before you book and plan out your entire next year of recruitment, let's think about it. What are your goals? What do you want to achieve over your recruitment year? Start that pre-onboarding right away. That's a continuous cyclic process. Onboarding, retention, recruitment, and wash, rinse, and repeat. Expand that community and connect with these new teachers. And you can do that well in advance by hosting perhaps bi-weekly webinars, talk about them and keep them engaged. And then, of course, Anne's favorite.
I love voice and choice because I think teachers who are existing there can help build new programs for teachers. They can help build your web presence. John talked a little bit about that. Start getting creative and think out of the box in cafeteria plan styles for benefits. Some might want more days off, whereas others would take the bonus stipend. It may have to do with family, but think more creatively about that. And then for takeaway on your team, we really only have one big idea, which is actually developing a workforce strategy, an ongoing strategy. And that starts with identifying your goals and staffing. What is your threshold for retention? Sometimes there might be some turnover you'd actually like to have, but where are you at with that? Diversify your recruitment strategies. Don't expect teachers to come to you in the same old models and the same old ways. Have sustained integration. So it's not just an orientation program and then they're dropped, it's an integration program. You want to build career advancement and get creative. And again, I can have career advancement by designing a course, not just necessarily being department head. Finally, we want community connections out of school as well as inside of those. These are just some of the takeaways that we had from the research we did. And I think we're pitching now to Mike and Tara.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Wow, there's lots of people here. Our workshop was on education for a sustainable future, developing global citizens and servant leaders who will transform our world, we hope. So we started out by sharing our expertise. We had quite a big team that were in our expert panel. So we looked at building a service learning framework How do you go about building that framework, and then pieces of the framework that are essential to make sure that it's sustainable? Looking at curriculum integration, our global mindsets, our skill sets, providing opportunities for students in things like GIN, Global Issues Network, and ACID-GIS, and then our systemic thinking. What are we doing with our practices to make sure that this really happens? So that was day one. And this is kind of what day two looked like. And we worked as a team to look at what were the big challenges that we had in our schools and what could we do to take action when we got back to our schools, immediate action. So this is what we ended up focusing on today. So we looked at our vision and mission statements, our staffing, curriculum, professional learning, our co-curricular programs, and our partnerships. So these are the areas that we felt were the best things that we needed to focus on when we got back to our schools to use our leverage to have change. We went into focusing on what it really means for student learning to be a global citizen. So I'm going to hand it over to Mike now, and he's going to break that down a little bit further.
So my name's Mike Johnson. I'm just one of the Michael directors. I think there are about 40 of us here. We systemically mapped these pieces in approximately 10 minutes. And in doing it in that way, what we found was that there's lots of great things going on in schools. They're just happening in pockets. So we really tried to continue to focus it on how we could continue to make it systemic change. So under each of those categories that you just saw, for vision and mission, here's our 5 and 5 by category found from the systemic map. So some people committed to review their mission for global citizenship. It's in there in some form. And what we found was, whether you're calling it global citizenship, service learning, innovation, social entrepreneurship, it doesn't matter. Just do good things with kids to change the world. And so revisiting that mission is a really good positive step. Map our system to find opportunities for global citizenship. Be very precise, and people from our group committed to do so. Go back and look at all the pieces in their organization to systemically map it. One of the categories of staffing, examine your hiring practice to target global citizenship. If you really want it in your school, right? We just heard from our team that was just up here. This is where all these are so connected with our professional learning coming. Hire the people who want to do it, and when you walk into an organization and ask a teacher what they do, they should say, I work with kids to change the world, instead of I teach biology. Professional learning. People committed to calendar-targeted PD for staff in terms of global citizenship, service learning, social entrepreneurship, whatever it may be, and make that targeted learning clear, concise, and a main focal point of what you do. Co-curricular. Participate in the Global Issues Network, participate in Round Square, in the Service Summit that goes on in Africa. Participate. These are the low-lying fruit you can do now. These are part of our 5 and 5 that you could do next week. Get a student group involved in that. But don't just leave it to the co-curricular. Get it in there all day long. Explicit action, here's something somebody committed to. They're going to do explicit action in elementary inquiry units because it seems to be the one in the inquiry cycle that we run out of time to do effectively. So let's not run out of time. Let's keep it as an explicit focus. And then under the partnerships bucket, create a way to vet partner organizations. People in the group committed to that. Create a network in AAIE. I suppose that's what we're doing in these sessions, but we can support each other. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Create service learning toolkit to share, so we're not all creating from scratch. And create online platforms for project sharing. So much of this has to do with good collaboration.
But wait, there are great things already happening. And yes, there is hope. It's not all doom and gloom. We just have to make a plan and make it happen.
So when it comes to service learning and any of the other things, global citizenship that we've talked about, what two better outcomes could we have? Better learning and making a better world? How do we not make that a priority? We have to. And so we're going to throw a challenge out to this group. Because between the facilitators, and we only just met yesterday, the facilitators in our session, and between the facilitators, we train and work with hundreds of educators around the world on all of these things. You know what the number one thing is that they say to us? Oh, my organization doesn't focus on that. We don't have time to do that. It's not something that we explicitly live. So from us to you in this room, leaders, make brave decisions. And let's make space for better learning and a better world. Michael and Pearl.
Hi, I'm Michael Nachbar, here with Pearl Kane. We were in the session about rethinking professional development. The first question that we were dealing with and thinking about was why? What are the goals around professional learning in our schools? Why are we doing it? What are we asking teachers to do and participate in? One of the questions that we were talking about is, we know when we talk about learning for students, we are very clear about what works. We know that learning for kids should be experiential, it should be coached, it should be meaningful and relevant. And yet, when we design professional learning for adults, we don't do many of those things. We have them sit in workshops and we talk at them. And while a lecture is a great way to teach, it's a terrible way to learn. So one of the things that we were thinking about and talking about is that we need to design learning experiences for adults that replicate and mirror the kinds of learning experiences that we're designing for students. And we should have similar expectations. Related to that is that the experiences that we design for adults should be deliberate and intentional. When we talk about and look at learning for students in our schools, and we think about the kinds of graduates we want to produce as learning institutions, we start with that and then we work backwards, right? We want to graduate leaders who are confident, who are global thinkers, who care about the world. What does that look like? And how do we design experiences to get students to apply that so that they're demonstrating those competencies, those skills, those habits of mind and ways of knowing? And we should do the same for our faculty. When a faculty member joins our school community, what do we want them to look like when they leave our school? And we should design learning experiences for our teachers in the same way that we deliberately and intentionally design learning experiences for our students. And let's not even forget about us. We should be thinking about ourselves in the same way. And finally, and this relates to things other people have talked about, that we should be places of learning for students and adults equally. When you go to recruiting fairs to talk to people about when you join our community, you're joining a community of learners, and those expectations that we have for our students, we also have for you. And so again, right, related to that deliberate and intentional, when you join us and when you're with us, we'll expect you to grow and learn and apply new things, try new things, and develop. We're not hiring you because you're fully baked. We're hiring you because you're a lifelong learner. And that flexible mindset is what we're looking for, not your skills in biology, although those content skills are very important.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. My name is Pearl Kane, and I think you'll notice from our PowerPoint that we restricted our presentation to 15 words, so we're proud of that. A third area where we felt professional learning was important had to do with actually hiring. Bless you. That often the job of teacher is understood to work with kids, to focus on kids. And even if the contract is broader, there's a contract and the psychological contract. The psychological contract is what people understand the job to be. And it's very important to have that conversation that the job is, yes, teaching kids a subject or teaching kids of a certain grade, but it's also working with colleagues, being a teacher leader, and what that means in the school. Having that conversation at the onset of hiring is a very important part of shaping the way the person you're recruiting will behave, and including those criteria in teacher evaluation. How well does this teacher collaborate? How do they contribute leadership? Do they share articles or books that they've read? Do they volunteer to be on a committee? Do they develop themselves by attending a lecture or taking a course? So making that part of the teacher evaluation is important. So enlarging the teaching job and making that clear from the onset. Second, meeting teachers where they are. We're good at doing that with kids, less good at doing that with adults. We know that teachers in their own learning continuum are at different places, even if they're teaching the same subject. So making learning amenable to teachers wherever they are is as important as it is for what we do for kids. And we think we can do that within schools well by having coaching, by providing ongoing feedback for teachers. And that would mean not the once-a-year evaluation, but not necessarily hiring coaches, but training teachers within your school to serve as coaches. It will actually help them grow as well and not add to your bottom line. It will, I think the point that educators, that leaders want, and certainly teachers coming to the field are attracted to it because they like learning. So keep feeding that learning, training teachers to help their colleagues with coaching in an ongoing way is one way that we can continue professional learning. So that is our 15-word presentation, and we ask you to make it happen. Thank you.
So as you read the quote, I hope that you're beginning to see together the themes that are coming together in this conference. Our two sessions were about executive coaching. A really good teacher is really good at coaching kids, meeting them where they are, ongoing, putting the kids at the center of their own learning, and taking those young minds and young human beings from where they are to the places where they can be. As teacher leaders, we often get quite good sometimes at coaching our teachers and doing the same sort of thing with them. But the challenge that we recognized in our sessions was that as leaders of schools, we often neglect ourselves. In fact, one person in our group referred to heads of school, and this resonated with me, as these ideas that we are lead learners in our school. And if we want our schools to transform into the kind of places that we know our young people need for their future, we have to begin by transforming ourselves. And therein lies the power of coaching. It's a safe space, a safe and trusted relationship where you can basically explore with your coach your own efficacy as a leader. And with your coach, you can basically become the best version of yourself that you can be. And with your coach, you can begin to model this for your own leadership team. You can begin to work with your own leadership team to help them become the best versions of themselves that they can be as individual leaders in their own right and as an entire team. And of course, they can work with their own teams in the school. And perhaps the biggest power of executive coaching is that it allows us to establish a culture of coaching in our schools, because our very best teachers have been doing this instinctively with young people for thousands of years. It really isn't new. And yet the older we get, the more set in our ways that we get, the more difficult that we find to do this for ourselves. And so it was a very moving experience the past 2 days in terms of this executive coaching. We feel that AAIE, and perhaps partnering with AAIE, Deb, we can make executive coaching the new norm for us as leaders of schools around our world, that we can have our recruitment agencies who are doing head searches make this part and parcel of what they recommend to school boards and owners when they're recruiting a new head of school, and that we together, all of us, can establish a culture of coaching for the leaders of all of these schools. Because if we're unable to transform our own mindset and our own practice, everything that we've seen up here in this session is not going to happen. So it was a great session. Thank you to all the folks who participated and to my co-facilitators. And I'm going to turn it over now to Mr. Jeff Paulson, who is going to give us the solution to life, the universe, and everything.
Yeah, I wish. Thank you, Kevin. I had the pleasure of working with about 50 people the last 2 days, exploring this question, this goal about the future of this organization. Now, I started tonight, this session, by talking about the fact, I know we've talked about this before. I know we've talked about this for a long time. It doesn't mean we shouldn't stop, or we have to keep talking about it, because we obviously don't have the answer. But what we wanted to do the last couple days was explore our preferred future of AAIE with membership. And one of the things that really happened is we had some really powerful discussions, especially on day one, and it got a bit messy, actually, because we were all over the place in the sense of what that preferred future might look like. And so at the end of day one, we just really collected ideas, and I really had about 3 pages of burning questions or major theme areas that we needed to narrow down. And this morning, we narrowed those down to really these different topics. So areas of future study for us. And again, no answers. And I really hope I captured the essence of what people were talking about today. But when we talk about our differential proposition, as an organization, what is our niche? Where's our backbone? What are we going to stand up for? What are we going to advocate for? What are we going to support? You've heard lots of tremendous ideas today around teaching and learning, and I would like to think this organization would have a learning focus as well. So if each of us are learning leaders on a campus, then my vision for this organization is we're a learning organization. And we dare to ask the courageous questions that we don't know the answers to. Because I know I find that inspiring, and I know many of you do too. And again, I would love to work with people trying to explore some of this, because I know it would not only benefit this organization, but it would benefit my practice and many of the things happening in the school I work in and in the region where I work. Connections. You know, we all talk about connections and developing relationships with people, but really actively seeking out these connections and relationships with people. One person in our group really had an interesting story. They talked about, wouldn't it be great at the opening session if we divided ourselves into, if we had 500 people, 50 groups of 10, 25 groups of 20, and for the next hour, everybody shared their story of how they got to where they were today. The rest of the conference, everybody's connected. So anybody who's new to the conference is not new anymore. People who've been here coming to the conference for 10, 15, 20 years, wow, now you've connected with somebody who's new, and your story is being shared with them, their story is being shared with you. You know, that deeper connection and relationship building amongst this community is something I sometimes think we take for granted. Are we future ready? Are we staying ahead of the conversations in this rapidly changing world? How can AE demonstrate that we're future ready? When things happen and people come to the organization and ask for help on things, are we ready? Can we implement change? I'm not sure about you, but where I'm living, we have fewer expats. Companies are redefining the expat package. They're not bringing families with young kids anymore. So what do we do? How do we reinvent ourselves and stay ahead of that conversation and remain relevant? By the way, the relevancy question isn't just for AIE. Everybody needs to be talking about this because the world is just changing that quickly. And again, a number of people in our group talked about the fact that when we get together, we have 500 people, and we have all these sharp minds and experiences in the same room together. Why are we not working more on some of these topics? And why are we not seeking solutions to some of these topics so we have something that we're walking away with in the sense of, wow, we have a solution, or, you know what, we need to extend this conversation because we're not done. At the same time, we identified areas to celebrate. There's a lot to be proud of with this organization, and from the words of the people that I worked with over the past 2 days, these are the essentials. They don't want to lose this. So as we start exploring and talking about reinventing and identifying our niche, how do we continue to preserve what it is that people value? Boy, when I say conferences, there were a lot of things associated with conferences. We love honoring people. The traditions of the past, recognizing individual accomplishments through the awards, these were all things that people talked about. So we obviously need to seek a balance of being an organization that recognizes and cherishes our history and recognizes the accomplishments of our members, but also challenges and stretches people in ways that we expect from our faculty. You know, there's a difference between a goal being a goal or an expectation. And again, I think we can actually create stretch goals for ourselves that we don't know the answers to. That's okay. Is AAIE where we want it to be when it comes to networking and connections? We're a community of global learners, no question, but are we taking advantage of that in ways that truly impact our schools and our relationships to other schools and our collaborations? Yeah, I like to think we have an innovative focus, and I think we do. And I think we really do a good job at that, but I question whether we could do more. You know, expertise. Let's look around the room. Look at the person next to you. The expertise in this room is absolutely incredible. And again, are we maximizing that and taking advantage of that richness to really have an impact? You know, the learning programs that we've been talking about so far in these solution sessions are quite powerful. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. And if we are going to really be a learning leader organization focused on that, we know kids are learning differently today. We know teachers are being expected to teach differently today. And I guess I really question, too, if we're demonstrating that learning leader capacity in our campuses in ways that actually truly support it. And again, we need to keep challenging ourselves in that way. We value our partnerships with service providers, the exhibitors, tremendously positive. I know a lot of you came here for this conference really to work with them. And again, that relationship is truly important. And I love the fact that we're giving voice to our members on really important initiatives. And if we're going to be an organization of courage, we need to continue to do that. And we need to relish the difference of opinion because there's strength in that. And that's where we'll grow. And that's where we will identify our niche. And this organization will be a driver and a leader in international education moving forward. I'm absolutely convinced. With that, I'll turn it back over to Kevin Glass for the closing.
We're not going to close quite yet. We have some of our outstanding members to recognize. Yolanda's going to come up here to help. And to Jeff's point, sharing our stories and valuing our stories. I was at the ASA luncheon today, where once again sharing stories from across Africa was fantastic. And we're recognizing and honoring our Hall of Fame recipients here this morning. Yolanda, do you have the... Thank you. So, Mr. Clayton Lewis, head of Washington International School, started his career in 1980 at the American School of London. Prior to that, prior to being appointed the upper school principal 4 years later. 14 wonderful years at ASL, where Clayton and his wife Susan, who taught kindergarten, and their 3 children began their own schooling there. Clayton worked closely with the College Board during his time there with advanced placement, and published a whole slew of articles in support of the program. In '94, Clayton and family moved to The Hague, and again, upper school principal being introduced to the IB in The Hague. '98, the director of the International School of Luxembourg, where he was until 2007. At ISL, Clayton was involved in a big building program overseeing the growth of all of the facilities. IB recognized as equivalent to Luxembourgian baccalaureate, And it was ISL that Clayton worked with colleagues and counterparts at other schools to establish what is now the Global Issues Network. And these student conferences are all about student voice and learning for action and impact. 2007, he headed to Washington, where he is today, to the Washington International School, where he worked with colleagues to build a dynamic network of local, public, independent, charter, parochial schools around the whole concept of Project Zero out of Harvard's Graduate School of Education. He served on the board here at AAIE and ECIS, the AISGW board of independent schools in Washington, D.C. He's presented at 33 professional conferences between 2004 and 14, and published several articles on global education. Clayton is going to graduate from the Washington International School in July of 2018, and he's going to re-engage with his intellectual life. It seems like he's been engaging with his intellectual life his entire career when you read his bio, so what re-engagement means, I have no idea. But please, please join me in honoring and recognizing Clayton Lewis and inducting Clayton into our AAIE Hall of Fame. So Dr. Mona Nasham-Smith, CEO and principal of Edmonton Islamic Academy in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So Mona became involved in international education in 1993, where she was recruited from the Edmonton Public School District to serve as an administrator in the Bavarian International School in Germany. 1996 moved on to the American British Academy in Muscat, Oman. In 98, she became the superintendent of that school, and she retired from Muscat, from the school there in 2014. 21 years in international education leadership, and she has many, many achievements, and I'll share some of them with you now. Helped the Middle Eastern school to become the first IB World School with all 3 IB programs. Created Student Leadership Symposium in the Middle East immediately after 9/11 to bring student leaders from around the world together to solve these real-life problems and issues. 2013, joined forces with other leading international school directors to create the initiative for the Global Women's Leadership Symposium, which took place in Amsterdam the first time in November 2013. 2016, Mona received the Queen of England appointment as a member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, shortened to MBE, in recognition of her services to the promotion of international understanding and education. Mona's passion is to bring together students, teachers, educational leaders, and parents of all nationalities and faith, from Edmonton to Texas and New York to Oman, to form partnerships in this global community, this global family that we have here at AIE. Hosted many an international symposium for educational leaders and student leaders, engaged in community projects in Bangladesh, Canada, Haiti, Oman, Palestine, Sudan, Syria, Tanzania, and several other countries around the world. She graduated in 2014 from Muscat to go back to Canada, and with the horrible spread of Islamophobia throughout the Western world, Mona, in response to a call for help from the chairman of the Edmonton Islamic Academy, returned to leading a school community with her work at EIA. And again, another way of giving back to the international community. As a Muslim woman and a leader in international education, Mona believes that students deserve to be provided with a contemporary Islamic curriculum that helps each and every student become an ambassador of peace and contribute to the betterment of all humanity. So please join me in welcoming Mona Nasham-Smith into the Hall of Fame. Thank you. And Linda, if you wouldn't mind coming down, Linda Duval. Mona couldn't be with us today, so Linda Duval, one of her close friends of many years, is going to accept this award on behalf of Mona. Thank you, Linda. Not a close friend, a sister. Thank you, Linda. Dr. Rick Spradling is another head of school who will be graduating this summer from the American School of The Hague. Began career as a grade 5 teacher at the International School of Lusaka in Zambia in 1979, and along with his wife Kathy, who also taught ISL High School English. Over the following 2 years, they taught at the International School of Yaoundé in Cameroon, and then 1983, Rick began his first headship at the American International School of Libreville in Gabon, where they were for 4 years, helping that small school grow and prosper. It was during Rick's first head of school experience that he attended his first AAIE conference here with us. Obtained his doctorate in educational leadership from the University of South Carolina in 1988, and joined a cohort of aspiring international school leaders with the support of the Assistant Dean of Education and future AOS Regional Education Officer, Dr. Connie Buford. Rick remained at Carolina as a visiting professor for 2 years before heading out once again into headship for the American Cooperative School of Tunis. Also headships at the American International School of Vienna, and finally where he is now at the American School of The Hague. And Rick, I think you've been the director there for 13 years at the American School of The Hague. Perhaps Rick's signature accomplishment at The Hague was helping that school and community become a much more inclusive learning environment, looking at where kids are with learning support and special education across a wide spectrum of learning needs. In all of his schools, Rick has tried to stabilize the community, unsettled environments, to bring calm and peace to the operations of the school. His most important task has been hiring and nurturing great teachers, and we've heard that theme, of course, during our sessions here the last 2 days. Rick has engaged in many boards and many organizations, giving back to the organizations. President and chair of ASA, the Association of International Schools in Africa, MACE, the Mediterranean Association of International Schools, CISA, the Central and Eastern European Schools Association, NESIS, the Northern European Council of International Schools. He served as treasurer of the board of the European Council of International Schools and chair of the board for the Council of International Schools, CIS. In fact, he was board chair until quite recently in 2015. Rick's given tons of presentations here at AIE and other conferences around the world, served on many panel discussions. 2013, he was inducted into another Hall of Fame, the Ernie Menino International School Superintendent of the Year, gave his address here at this conference in 2013. And Rick is a prolific writer, has published articles in Intered, TIE, Educational Leader, Education Digest, and so on. Rick and his wife will be based in Los Angeles after graduating from The Hague to be closer to their grandchildren. And Rick will be working as an advisor and thought partner for the Council of International Schools, and hopefully will be joining us here every year at AIE. Please join me in welcoming Rick Spradling to the AIE Hall of Fame. We have Dr. Ellen Stern to speak about, who recently retired as head of school from the American Embassy School in Delhi. And Ellen's career began the year she graduated from college. She's worked in independent schools over the next 40 years, serving as math teacher, elementary math consultant, a middle school head, an assistant principal, head of school, adjunct college professor. Ellen's involvement in our world of international education began when she was appointed the director of the Anglo-American School of Moscow in '96, building a great new facility during her time with support from the Office of Overseas Schools and the US Embassy. She was then invited to be the interim superintendent at The Hague, at the American School of The Hague for a year. And this was the beginning of a whole new chapter and career for Ellen Stern as the queen of international school interim headships. She discovered that she was the perfect fit for this often at times difficult role, sometimes going into a school in crisis, in turmoil, bringing calm, stability, and organization. So, Ellen provided this stability and much more in the many, many school communities she served. She served on several boards, including the Ethical Culture Schools in New York City, Pennsylvania Association of Independent Schools, on the founding board of the Association of International Schools in India, and the first board of the Council of International Schools, guiding its separation from ECIS, and most recently the CISA board. She's presented at conferences all around the world on a variety of school leadership issues and topics, facilitated board training for many schools, and more recently she's been providing encouragement and training for women in international school leadership through the Global Women's Leadership Group, regional presentations, facilitating a women's leadership session with the executive director Yolanda Murphy-Brenner at TACI on behalf of AAIE. Ellen looks forward to continuing to support international school leaders as they take on their first director's position and move to a new school, and continue to work with boards in their challenging and important leadership role with our schools and communities. Please join me in honoring and welcoming Dr. Ellen Stern into the AAIE Hall of Fame. So, as we tie our conference together, I just want to touch on some of the themes that we've heard over the last 2.5 days. We really do have to transform our world through the direct impact of our students, our communities in the various cities and countries and cultures that we touch literally across our globe. And we've heard some ideas about how we can start doing this better, more systematically, more systemically, more sustainably. We heard about innovative practice, moving from teacher-led to student-driven. We've heard that perhaps the systems, the 200 years of schooling and our own baggage and mindsets are getting in the way. We've heard what we have to do to attract and retain vocational educators who really want to grow professionally. They want to feel valued. They want to make a difference. They want to have a career path in our schools. We've heard how we can better onboard them for retention. We've heard how our students need to know that they have an authentic and real impact in their world, that our students can change their world for the better, this idea of learning for action and impact, education for their future, not our past. We need a systemic change in our schools to allow our students to access this. How do we do that? We build our professional learning communities. We actually design learning experience for adults based on best practice and research, as opposed to death by PowerPoint. We model our learning as adults. It is deliberately designed and coached. But where do we have to start? We have to start with ourselves. If we can't model this learning and this coaching in our schools, how on earth, what right do we have to demand that of our teachers, of our faculties? This ongoing coaching, we hope, will be a theme for AAIE and for AISH and for all of us coming together in the years to come. We use the phrase, together we cultivate a spirited sense of hope in human potential. The more I spend time here with you all and in the conversations that we have in the hallways and in our sessions, the more I truly believe that, because we can, as an organization, make that difference and provide that support for each other moving forward into the world. There's someone I really want to thank and to acknowledge, and it's no secret she's standing on my right. Yolanda Murphy-Brenner will be graduating from AAIE this summer and handing on the reins to someone else. Yolanda has led our organization through a time of turbulent change, brought us to a fantastic conference here in New York City, built a wonderful team of professionals in the AAIE office. So Derek is standing there at the back. We've seen Sylvia and Rodia taking photographs. We've seen Terry manning the stalls back there, a fantastic team. So on behalf of all of us, I would really like us to put our hands together to thank Yolanda and the wonderful AAIE team for what they've done to bring us all together here in New York. Yolanda.
Derek and Rodia, Sylvie, and Jenny, and Terry, please come on up front. Derek?
Thank you guys so much. Thank you. You can buy them all a drink later on this evening at the gala. As we bring the team up here, I would also like to acknowledge someone who is joining once again the family of AAIE. Mark Ulfers served as president. My role, sort of in this association, has got a deep affection and heart for the work. And so what I'd like to do, please, is well done. Mark, would you mind standing, sir? So if anybody doesn't know you yet, they now will. Please turn and face the audience. Please join me in welcoming Mark Ulfers, our incoming Executive Director for AAIE. So as I'm going to turn it over to Yolanda, who's got some announcements to finish, I wanted to round out with a little bit of Kipling. So bear with me. I think it speaks to what we've all been experiencing together here in New York. There's no sense in going further. It's the edge of cultivation, so they said, and I believed it. Broke my land and sowed my crops, built my barns, and strung my fences in the little border station tucked away below the foothills where the trails run out and stop. Till a voice, as bad as conscience, rang the interminable changes one everlasting whisper day and night repeated. So, something hidden, go and find it. Go and look beyond the ranges, something lost behind the ranges, lost and waiting for you over yonder, go you there. And so I invite all of us here at AAIE, let's all go you there and transform our world for our young people. Thank you so much.
I'm not going to apologize for making this awesome group of people stand up here, because I wanted to thank them myself. I've been very blessed in my role as the 10th ED of AAIE to have a phenomenal team of very talented young people that have been helping me at the school, at NSU. Rodia is the intern that stayed with us the longest. She's actually graduating in May, and she is heading off to a master's program and hopefully an internship with the FBI. So we're going to miss her. I was very blessed to have Derek join me recently, a couple years ago, from Rome, where he was a middle school principal. And he has kept me sane. He has completely rebuilt the technology that we are using and that you enjoy in a variety of ways. Him and Rodia both have helped me rebuild that website from scratch. And we now have probably the most comprehensive history of AAIE archived on that website as far as kind of honoring the past. So for the first time, if you go and check out about us. You will see photos, bios, information on a wealth of people that built this organization to what it is today. And hopefully that will stay for a long time and be added to as you and others continue to contribute to the association. I'd like to thank Sylvia, who joined us as our social media person. She has been outstanding in getting this organization into the almost 22nd century with her high use of social media. She's done a great job of getting people online. Our Twitter account has, I don't even know, probably 10 times the followers just in the last year that it had the year before. I know that just a couple days ago when we were opening the app, she said, oh, yeah, last year by the end of the conference we had how many? Last year it was like 250, and this year it's almost 1,000. So it's a lot of more sharing going on between our international community and also with people who weren't able to be here, but they'd like to know what you guys are experiencing and the best of what you're learning. Very proud of Sylvia. She recently just published a book on documenting learning. I would highly suggest you read it. She's great and can do a good amount of help in moving us as leaders into documenting learning in a way that our students are going to understand and appreciate. Terry, I don't know what to say about Terry except she was kind of a gift from heaven that Paul Poor shared. We needed someone in the office to do accounting and to do a number of other things that have to do with organization of our documents and files, and she has come in. She works part-time. Her and I meet after. She does a full day at ASA. From 4 to 6 or 4 to 7 p.m. often or later. She mails a lot of stuff out. She's always kind on the phone. She is the first port of call for anyone with an overseas credit card that doesn't work and understands how to make all that work. She has been phenomenal to work with. I thank her for her patience with me and my sometimes disorganization when it comes to getting the papers ready by 4 p.m. so when she walks in the door it's ready. But a pleasure to work with. And our most recent person that's joined the team as a volunteer, yes, she's been here all week working as a volunteer, is Jenny Chiang. I just met her in December when I was at the regional directors meeting with AOS in DC. She has a ton of experience in advancement and admissions, and we put together a very nice summer conference for people that are looking to have their leaders in those areas of advancement, admission, communications, and together for this summer at the Maka Institute. And she said, why don't I come in and just meet some people? And I said, we are always willing to take free help here. So she's been here all week working hard. I thank Jenny, and I'm sure you'll see lots more of her in the coming years within AAIE. And the last individual that I would like to thank is my home team, and that is the hubby, Igor. Can you come up here, hon? He has been running all over this place, doing technology, doing tech support, putting up with being alone. We don't have children, and he's often alone in Miami. We don't have pets. It's just him and his tennis buddies, so don't feel too sorry for him when I'm on the road for AIE. But he's been a phenomenal support. Despite being CEO of his own tech German company, he found time this week to answer emails early and late and be here to help Derek run around and set up rooms. So I really appreciate it. He is definitely my rock, and we are looking forward to moving to Spain in July, where I'll be finishing my doctorate, and he will be working on several companies that he's opened. So there'll be more on that chapter later when I come visit you in San Francisco. So as far as the team that's up here, it's been a blessing. You guys have been a blessing. We've met so many wonderful people in the last 3 years that we've been with AAIE, new people, some good friends in the audience that I can see that I didn't know prior, and many of you that I respect and that I look forward to learning with in the future and maybe working with, you never know. I noticed within our community, be nice to everyone because you never know who you're going to be working with or where you're going to be living. Paul's message of be kind and pass it along. The other person that I would like to thank is Linda Duval. Could you stand? Linda was the person, and Jack Delman. These two were the people that gave me the opportunity to come and apply for this position and open this whole world of AAIE up. When I was called to apply, I said, what? What organization? I had never heard of AAIE. So I was doing a lot of Googling and research and said, this sounds like a pretty cool place. So I was very appreciative of the opportunity to learn from you and become part of this organization and go on the roller coaster ride of the last 2.5 to 3 years. But it's been fun and a lot of downhill slides that were fun on the way. So I appreciate that, Linda, and I appreciate that, Jack, for the opportunity. I'd like to thank Kevin. Kevin has worked with me over the last couple of years as the board chair, and I've learned a lot from Kevin. Shakespeare mostly, but he's been interesting to work with, and Atlanta was a great experience setting that up in a couple of months with him. The one person that I'd like to thank as a mentor is Paul Poor. Paul, if you could stand. Paul has put a lot of time in. I have to tell you that unless you run an association, there's a small group of us, it is a very strange job compared to running a school. And Paul was someone that took the time to explain some things and help with strategies and connect me with people and provide a lot of things, including calendars that run through 2030, et cetera, that you need when you're in this sort of position. And I thank him for the lunches, for the times, for the odd time weekend and holiday text messages back and forth from various parts of the world. You were a rock throughout this, and I appreciate it. Thank you. So at this time, I would like to just wish my successor, I'm thinking predecessor, my successor, Mark, which is kind of a full circle. My first AAIE conference, I thanked Mark for being the person that hired me to go overseas from the Iowa Fair. I had never even thought of going overseas, and I met Mark and had several job offers and decided I'd like to work with someone that I could learn a lot from. So it's kind of fortuitous that it's come back, and I'm handing this job over now to Mark. So we've both given each other some opportunities, and I hope that I have left this association in a very good position. We have moved forward in some key areas of being more inclusive and more international, being out there within the global setting. I thank the regional directors for inviting me to many conferences and opening doors and making this one of the most interesting experiences as far as networking that I think anyone could have in their life. I see the construction workers would like us to go. That's pretty funny. Yeah, sorry. I'll speak up. So before we have our closing song, which Chip and Robert Landau are going to bless us with, as we head off to the gala, I would like to invite the sponsors of tonight's gala. We have a wonderful party planned for you. There's going to be dinner starting at 7 o'clock in the big front lounge that looks out on Broadway. Then we have the Eunice All-Star Band that's going to be playing in the Manhattan Ballroom at 8 o'clock. So bring your dancing shoes. 3 hours, everything's open till 10 p.m. And we've got a couple big sponsors to thank for that. Annette Bowling is here to represent Mark from Advanced Ed. You can go sit down. Sit down. I don't want to make you stand the whole time, guys. Thanks. We can thank, please thank them. They've been amazing. Mark Tomaszewski Tie Care has been a phenomenal sponsor along with Advanced Ed for this event for the last several years, diamond level sponsor. Mark unfortunately had to head home as he found out yesterday his mother had passed away. So he left, and we will be sending condolences on that. TD Bank, is Joe Padera here? Joe? Joe, can you come on up here? Joe is someone that all of us know, and in his last year at TD Bank, he has been a stalwart sponsor of AAIE for I don't know how many years, probably as long as he's been internationally banking. Always here, always supportive. I wanted to thank him in person in front of you because it's his last year, and he once again came through with a generous sponsorship for this event and for our organization to enjoy a celebration at the end. So, Joe, how many years has it been now that you've been working with international schools and organizations? 20 plus years. So can we give Joe a hand? Thank you so much. And his daughter will be joining us. She was here, met everyone, but Christine Padera will be taking on the legacy and continuing to support our associations overseas, so we thank her for being here as well. So without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Chip Barter and Robert Landau and John on up to play something hopefully louder than the jackhammering so that we can get in a celebratory spirit before we head down to the gala. Thank you so much.
Check 1, 2.
We thought it would be fitting to end with a song. Music has seemed to be a wonderful part of the conference. Our UNIS students were amazing at the General Assembly, and of course the band this afternoon. And plus, I mean, just to show you how much detail Yolanda does, she had the UNIS students performing, and now she has another UNIS Hanoi head of school doing the last song. So in the detail, and the first song they did was about the Phoenix, and that happens to be our mascot. So Yolanda, your attention to detail is amazing. The second part is, I promised to do this for Keith. So Keith, this one is for you. And it is meant to, even though it's a little slow, it is from the 60s, and you know, even though Keith likes country music, his heart is in the 60s. So and it'll lead us into tonight, I hope. Do you wanna dance and hold my hand? Tell me I'm your lover man, oh baby. Do you wanna dance?
Do you wanna dance and hold my hand? Tell me you're my lover man, oh baby. Do you wanna dance?
Well, do you wanna dance? Do you wanna dance? Do you wanna dance? Do you wanna dance under the moonlight? Squeeze me all through the night, oh baby. Do you wanna dance?
Do you wanna dance and hold my hand? Tell me I'm your lover man. Oh, do you wanna dance?
You can join us. Well, do you wanna dance? Do you wanna dance? Do you wanna dance? Well, do you wanna dance? Do you wanna dance? Do you wanna dance? One more time, here we go. Well, do you wanna dance?
Moonlight.
Do you
All
wanna
through the
dance?
night.
Do you wanna dance?
Do you wanna dance?
Do you wanna dance? Do you wanna dance? Have a good time tonight. We'll see you there.